Coming up on Theatre Talk.
There were changes, but it was that thing of where they move one thing to the other side, it goes earlier, then one line goes later, and take that out and put that sideways. And so it's not even new, it just gets moved.
Yeah.
And that's what messes your brain up.
She's approaching.
From New York City, this is Theatre Talk. I'm Susan Haskins, and I am joined by my guest co-host, Jesse Green, co-chief theater critic of the New York Times. And we are here to talk about this wonderful book, The World Only Spins Forward, The Ascent of Angels in America, and it is written by Dan Coyce and one of our guests, Isaac Butler. He is a director, an actor, and so many other things, but in this case, he has written a wonderful oral history of the angels in America, and we are graced by two angels here with us, Ellen McLaughlin, who was in the original production of Angels in America and stayed with it from back in the day, 7 years, until it went to Broadway, and Amanda Lawrence, who is in the production now, and I'll say Amanda also, she's a revered actress, but she was in Star Wars, where you can't miss her. With that, Jesse, take it away.
If we can just start leaving the angels aside, if they won't glare too much at me, why did you start this project back when it was an article for Slate?
The reason why we started, and it really started with Dan, was that both Dan and I had the experience of seeing both parts of Angels in America back when it was on Broadway, seeing both parts of it and having it just completely change our lives in that way that when you're sort of a young, artistically inclined, politically motivated person, you go and you see this show and you suddenly realize what art can do, what theater can do, how politics and art can intertwine. You know, it has this just incredibly powerful effect. So when the 25th anniversary of its premiere at the Eureka was coming up, he pitched the idea of doing a piece on the history of Angels in America, and then very quickly realized it was a huge, huge, huge project and brought me on board.
Let's just interrupt to say that the Eureka was the theater in San Francisco where it was first. Well, the timeline is so peculiar, and I don't know of any play, and certainly any great play like this that has had such a peculiar background. But was the Eureka, Ellen, was that the first public performance of the play?
No, because we'd done workshops in LA, and that were that people actually could attend. So there were sort of, there was a small production of Millennium, but when we put the two plays together for the first time and performed them, that was at the Eureka.
And that's when I saw it. I just, on a personal note, I just should say, Ellen and I were schoolmates, and I was in San Francisco for reasons I can't recall, and you said, oh, you have to come see this crazy thing I'm doing, and I did go to part one. This is told in the book.
It is.
The World Only Spins Forward.
And I should say that The World Only Spins Forward is an oral history where you interviewed how many people?
250 some odd.
Right.
And, you know, over the course of doing that, what we discovered was one of the many reasons why it grew from being an article to a book, is that every single person that we had encountered who had met the play at any point had a similarly life-changing experience of it, whether they were in it or saw it or taught it or just read it.
So a lot of that, since the book focuses especially on the creation of the play from around 87,
88, yeah.
To 93 is the main focus, although it continues into the present, but it's largely about that development. So it might be interesting to know, even when the text is a complete thing and you're coming into it for the first time many years down the line, is it still a life-changing process for an actor?
I'd say for our cast, it has been, and it continues to be. It's a monumental piece. I mean, I remember reading it before the audition, and it taking me 8 hours to read it on the set, and just going and thinking, this is incredible. This is something very different, incredible, and then going into rehearsals, gosh, and just seeing everyone go through something, each actress going through something, and it massively affecting them. Everyone crying, without sounding, everyone being profoundly moved.
And this was back at the production that was at the National
Yeah, in
Theatre.
the rehearsal.
The same cast, but this was 2 years ago,
Not
right?
quite the
Yes,
same.
nearly. There's Joe Pitt being played by Lee Pace now.
Yes, yes.
But and new shadows, people that move, the angels getting moved by these amazing puppeteers and dancers.
And you go through such a trajectory that you're starting with Ellen back in the day, beginning this project, and then Amanda's in the book too. You talked to the people who were in this production.
Yeah, we were very lucky that they were, right when we started working on the first article, they announced that there was going to be a production a year later at the National. And in fact, that article has a very early interview with Marianne Elliott, the director, right when she was beginning researching the play. And then, when we got to do the book, we contacted the National and said, hey, could we come out? Could we watch the show? Could we interview everyone? And they very, very generously said yes, which was great. And so we got to go, to everyone's dressing rooms and interview them about the show. And what's exciting about that, what was exciting about that for us, and I hope is exciting when you read the book, is that where it culminates is people who are actually in the show. So it's no longer like a retrospective, it becomes an active experience.
Well, there are
in their
these
lives.
marvelous interludes throughout the book where you focus one at a time on each of the characters, or the tracks, as we call them, because almost everyone in the show plays more than one character. Is that true of
Everybody
everyone?
does.
Yeah, even
at least
Pryor.
they play another angel. Pryor, who is the, I guess you would say, the center of the play, also plays kind of his, his dark twin in the park at one point. But in any case, you have these interludes where you focus on the characters and their tracks, and you hear from Ellen and Amanda and many of the other people who have played the angel, for instance, almost on a technical level about how they did it. And I think it's wonderful to have the two of you here in particular, because of all the parts, the angel is the most peculiar.
Sure is, yeah.
And
Yeah.
both as an acting challenge, like what is this thing? What is the gender of this thing? I mean, there's a million foundational questions.
But it's always played by a woman, right?
Yes, but does she or does she not have three penises? I don't
A
know.
bouquet.
A bouquet
Yeah,
of penises?
Valori.
Is that, and then there's the technical problems or opportunities of the angel. So, and one of the things the book does so well is it's not just a history of political drama in our time, but also of feuds and firings and terrible mishaps involving flying, basically.
You met Tony, you were there at the beginning, but almost everyone else at some point bit the dust in the production, except for you and Stephen Spinella.
Well, in fact, I was not the first angel.
Oh, you weren't?
It was
Oh,
written.
sorry.
It was written for my friend Sigrid Werschmidt, who was a beloved actor and just an extraordinary, a light of a human being. And Sigrid got breast cancer and died within the year, and I took over the part from her. And I always felt that my work was completely dedicated to the memory of this woman. I mean, she's one of the great people I've ever known.
Is there any kind of a fraternity or sorority of angels? I mean, have you consulted with each other over time? Did you?
Well, we should have.
Well, it should be
Should you have a
some kind of
party at least?
convention.
No, I'm meeting Amanda for the first time,
Yeah.
and it's just wonderful. We should have been talking all this time, conspiring as angels.
Yeah.
But because there's a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
But I've always found it's such a peculiar line of parts. I feel like whoever you're playing, all of those parts, they sort of come in and they make these big apocalyptic
Yes.
statements.
I am known as one cool, collected queen, and I am ruffled.
There's really nothing to worry about. I think that Shochen Bamronim, Hamste Manucho Nohono Al Kamfe Haskino.
What?
Everything is fine. Bima Alos Kodoshin. Utahorim Kizoha Horakia Maschirin.
They are representatives of abstract, they're ideas with wings, in the case of the angel. And you sort of come in and you make your point and then you leave. You're off charging around, getting into the soup lady outfit, or you know,
Yes, yes, a
or
backstage,
back
quick
into the
change.
nurse. I mean,
Yeah.
you sort of represent abstraction in a way that none of the other characters.
And
You're
yet,
not really playing characters, right?
Amanda, you say in the book, if you're quoted accurately, that the Angels' big speech, the anti-migratory epistle, that was
Yes.
called, is a delight or is delicious to.
Yes.
Okay, are you
Well,
retracting that statement?
No, no, it is fantastic. It is extraordinary and other, just so other. But it's a real challenge every night to communicate it. I find to go, this is, to say she's been abandoned by God, which is a glyph, which is a symbol, and we all shag each other, and that's how the world stays balanced and the universe works. But he's got attracted to human beings, and he's got and he's left us, and the world's gone.
It's a complex ideology.
It's
Cosmology.
really difficult. It's a challenge.
Can it be approached in the way you would approach character normally, or do you have to use a completely different set of tools?
I think, yeah. I mean, she's a character. You can't really do it any other way than the way that you do it. But the only way I could ever make it work was that she's strong and wrong. I mean, she absolutely believes this to be the truth, and so it's not actually, as far as she's concerned, it's not a difficult concept to convey.
No, no.
It's just the truth.
yeah.
Which concept is not a difficult concept to
The
convey?
way the world works.
And that mankind must stop
That-
moving around.
That it's mankind's fault that the world is falling apart, that there's so much, that the cosmos is disintegrating because we keep moving around. And there was this great image, maybe it was in one of the first drafts, or maybe it was, there were so many versions
Yeah.
of the epistle. But Tony said that the angels looking down on the world could see the migrations of the populations, and it like clouds on the Weather Channel, and that it made it spinning, and it made them nauseated. And that was always a very helpful image for me. Is this sort of why can't you people stay put?
Yeah.
But I see your point that when that part comes in at the beginning of Perestroika, until the angel arrives at the end of the first play, we're not naturalistic, but we're not in this place of this extreme metaphysical statement. And the fact that you have to come in and sell it, that you arrive and have to sell this huge change in what he's doing. Was he completely there with Tony Kirshner? Was he completely there with this kind of philosophical thing when he was finishing Millennium, or did he really expound on that when he went to the very different Perestroika?
It was a
second
long process. It started as a chamber piece that was going to be a short play with a few Mormons and Roy Cohn. That was it. And
songs.
well, yes. I at one point I was Raisa Gorbachev, and I had a song that started the first play, I think. No, it was a long, long process, and it wasn't until years into it that he sort of came upon what the angel actually was going to say, the content of what she was going to come in and
One
say.
of the things you get from the book that's wonderful is the way the creation of the play recapitulates the content of the play in just the way that Ellen was sort of suggesting, in that part one, which, as you said, it has many of the hallmarks of naturalistic drama, although it's usually not staged that way, but it's a series of interactions among humans, basically.
Among humans.
It turns out to be preparing the way, just as the angel announces at the end of the first part, for this rather other thing that comes in the second part. And unless you sort of see the whole history of it on the page before you, as you do in the book, I think it's hard to know that happened.
Yeah, and the second thing about that is that Perestroika, which is of course a messier. I don't mean that. I mean that descriptively. You know, a messier play, a more complicated play. It's a 5-act play instead of a 3-act play. That's about the difficult, complicated, never-ending work of change. Is also a play that will probably never actually be finished on some level. You know, Kushner has gone back to it many times, tinkered with it many times, even since Broadway. I think there were some changes for this new.
Quite a few changes.
There were changes at the National, and then.
Oh, well, let's talk about that for a
talk about
second,
that.
because a lot of the book, and certainly Ellen's history, involves a tremendous amount of pages pouring out of fax machines with new material to learn in one day, or to refuse to learn in one day, and in some cases.
I always learned it. The problem is that the rewrites were good, so you couldn't.
If only he'd written more poorly, you could have stood up against it.
Because I had to actually.
There's
do
a
it.
wonderful scene where you are arguing with him.
Well, there were several of those sorts of scenes, but the preview process in LA was long, and it was a very difficult preview process. Everything that could go wrong tended to go wrong. And we were, working all day putting in rewrites and then trying to hang on to them at night and get through the thing. And it was ending pretty late. It's a long show at the best of times. And the last preview before the opening, he came to me, and I'd been feeling sort of good about the anti-migratory epistle, because it was like he wasn't bringing in any rewrites on that. And I thought, okay, great, I can hang on to that. Last preview before opening, he came in with a 15-page rewrite. And it wasn't just a sort of straight-ahead rewrite. It was the thing where he was taking this section and putting it over there, and then moving that over there, and then
Which
sort
is
of
worse
changing
to
this.
learn.
Yes.
It was really, and I thought, I'm not a computer. I can't actually do that. I'm not a word processing system. And it would change all of the tech, because there was, all the flying and everything. So and it was late, and it was after the show, and he came into my dressing room with this rewrite, and I did this thing which he made fun of me about it afterwards. I showed him the door. I said, I have friends here, I'm gonna go out, I'll look at this, I'll think about it, I might do it, I might not be able to do it, but I need to get out of the theater right now. And I showed him the door, and he just, steam coming out of his ears, it was just awful. And so I got together with my friends, and we went to the bar, and there he was in the bar waiting for me. And he says, we have to read it, you have to read it right now. And of course he was right. And I read it with him, and it was better. So I spent the night memorizing it, and we went in the next day and put the whole thing in, and I hung on to it for opening night. And then I thought, well, okay, that's the last time that'll ever happen to me. Cut to the end of the preview process on Broadway. And he came in with a 24-page rewrite. And this time we did it right, which was we went out, Steven Spinella and I and George Wolfe, the director, and the stage manager, we all went out to a bar and read through it and made some changes. And I spent the night memorizing it, and I spent the day reworking it, and then I hung on to it. And I remember spinning and looking down at Stephen and thinking, well, at least, if he's down there, he can probably take care of me. We'll get through it somehow together. But
Did you have any of that in London?
In London, not massively. In here, there were changes, but it was that thing of where they move one thing to the other side, it goes earlier, then one line goes later, and take that out and put that sideways. And so it's not even new, it just gets moved.
yeah,
And that's what messes your brain up.
because you figured out the way to get from here to there.
And to make a journey
And to
through it.
take
Yeah.
that and put it over there, it's
Yeah.
really
But
freaky.
you're also not mentioning that or you alluded to it, that while you're fiddling with the text, this is all happening while a great deal of physical activity is going on.
Yeah.
Yes, so for you,
Yeah, I was
Right.
I was up in the air, but
But my changes weren't like yours. That sounds massive.
Well, but
was-
yours is a very physical representation as well, different physicality.
Yes.
I wanted to ask you, when we hear about all these changes, you've been pretty much expert on this play now, having seen it. Do you think all those changes were necessary? You remember so well seeing this in the first place. I'm sure you've read the play many times. You've discussed it with everyone, including Tony Kushner. And then, so I do find myself asking, well, did he really need to give her how many more pages?
Well, I didn't have pay. I think.
No,
you were
but
the
I mean,
one,
but
lots of moves around. Yeah.
or was this just how Tony Kushner had to work to keep himself charged up?
That is a really good question, Susan.
I really think on a deep kind of spiritual, or maybe this is a little woo-woo level, but it's actually like what the play does to you. I think it's not so much about the nature of Tony Kushner, although Ellen might disagree, but as it is about the nature of Perestroika.
Yeah,
The Perestroika is a play where that's this furious engine of constant change, and it can't be contained by itself. It just can't. And so to sort of reckon with that honestly means in some way that you're going to wind up being driven to tinker
So, but
with
I'm
it.
talking so that this writer is driven to tinker with it.
No, it's almost like it's a condition. Like it's like a medical condition that you can live with. It's chronic. You can live with it, but you can never be cured of it.
Yeah, I mean,
So
again,
you have to keep treating it.
yeah, I don't want to pathologize Tony Kushner. What I'm really trying to say is that there are, when you embark on a work of art, particularly like a capital G great work of art, it places certain demands on you and it does things to you. There's a part, I'm going to butcher this line, but someone sends Tony a quote that a poet wrote down about, you having to become the artist necessary to make the great work. And much of our book is the story of that struggle, of him trying to become the artist who could finish Perestroika during what he calls the most expensive writer's block in theater history. And he did it, right? And the work continues to demand from him that he work on it.
That's a very onerous responsibility to be the great artist. And then, so I wonder, I don't know the man, if he doesn't feel, I have to keep living up to this. Do you think that's possible? I mean, you do know
course.
him. That I have to keep living up to this, so maybe I better go back in.
well, I also but there's lots to say here. But I think that speaking as a playwright,
Yes.
plays are creatures that you can't control. If they're any good, they will defy your attempt to control them. If they're any good, they will surprise you. And if you're any good as a playwright, you'll be able to listen for those surprises and actually move with them. And there were a lot of dead ends that we had to go down in order to find our way to what it became. And I've also, I was always impressed by the fact that Tony really didn't care about anything but getting this thing right. And he had to do a lot of work to become the writer who could finish the damn thing, or finish it enough that he could just at least walk away from it on opening nights. But the play demanded that of all of us. And it changed all of us who were part of it. It made us better actors. It made us smarter about, how demanding a really good piece is. And, I think it also is very demanding of its audiences. You have to sit with it. You have to ride that long and complicated ride and track it and do the best you can. That's all it asks. And it's a lot. It's a lot. But that's why it's so exhilarating to be part of it in any way, even as an audience member. It's exhilarating.
And you, Amanda, what's your take on what she just said? Are you in this state of exhilaration and becoming a better
Or
actor?
exhaustion.
I think a bit of mingle of both, but I would exhaustion and exhilaration. I think for all of us in the cast, I think we're on this amazing journey, and I each of us in these scenes, I think we've bloomed, and we learn from each other. I've learned so much. I am better, I think, from being in this play. And we have a wonderful director and a wonderful cast, but the play's the thing. It really is.
That's a good line.
Shakespeare.
Yeah.
He said it. Not
When Perestroika was over, I'm like, and you all come out on the stage and you're so up and vitalized. I mean, you've been through something, but you can just see that you are all so exuberant.
Well, I was saying, like, thank you. You've
Yeah.
sat through 8 hours or more.
We should just say, though, from an audience perspective, it is a big wave and all of that, but it's hilarious. You know, I mean, we are also, in a way, promoting this wonderful play that happens to be being performed right now in New York. And it's worth noting that it's tremendously enjoyable and entertaining as well. And I just want to say that so is the book, because all of what you are both talking about, the sort of heartbreaking difficulties of it, but also the growth and the kind of backstage theatrical hilarity, it's all in there and makes it quite a page turner. One final question: was there anyone who would not talk to you?
Oh yeah, there were plenty. There were several people who didn't really want to talk to us. Maybe they had had a negative experience, they didn't want to relive it, or you know, there were people who never returned our missives sent to their agents. Michael Stuhlbarg was filming Call Me by Your Name and couldn't do it. Several people are dead. I would have loved to talk to Robert Altman about the version of the movie that he never made. So, you know, there's lots of people we weren't able to speak to, but. You know, 250 some odd, that's a lot of people to interview for one book, and there's a lot of voices in there.
But I do think you missed the Raisa Gorbachev song. I really, for the reissue or for online, you got to provide a link to Ellen singing that if you can get that.
Yeah, exactly.
sure
If there's
I
an
can
audio,
remember
there's
it.
yeah, exactly.
Well, it's just, we
had
could
a
go
hat.
on and on. It's just wonderful to have you all here, and I cannot recommend this book enough. I have read it twice. So, yeah. So it's The World Only Spins Forward. Thank you, Isaac Butler.
Thank you so much for having
Thank you,
me.
Ellen McLaughlin.
Thank you.
And thank you, Amanda Lawrence. You've got a show tonight. Whoa.
Yes.
Yes.
Coming to see it.
All right. All right. Thank you, Jesse Green.
Thank you,
Wonderful.
Susan.
Goodbye. Our thanks to the Friends of Theater Talk for their significant contribution to this production. Theater Talk is made possible in part by the Frederick Lowe Foundation, the Corey and Bob Dinelli Charitable Fund, the Noel Coward Foundation, Carrie J. Fries, the Dorothy Strelson Foundation, and the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs.
We welcome your questions or comments for Theater Talk. Thank you,